In today's video, we're going to look at the 100 and 130 tractors. In 1954, International Harvester released their 100 series tractors, so it replaced the letter series tractors. And what usually happens when a designer has enough changes, they don't necessarily continue the same model. If there's enough changes, they'll introduce a new model. John Deere did that with their Model A. They had that tractor out for almost 20 years before they finally decided to change the model from the Model A to the Model 60. And again, when a designer has enough changes, it doesn't make any sense to keep the model going because it creates creates havoc for parts, especially. In another video I'll talk to you about the Model A tractor, but the John Deere Model A, there were 3 different changes, and so if you have an early Model A and a late Model A, none of the parts will interchange, so it can create a real problem. Now, having said that, there were some changes within the series, but for the most part, when International Harvester had enough changes, they would release a new model and update the older model with the new model. So that was the case with the Cub, the 100, 200, 300, and 400 tractors. So today we're going to talk about the 100 and 130 tractors. They were between 1954 and 1958. In early 1954, National Harvester was still producing the Super A tractor, which had the older motor in it. They had a new motor. Essentially, it was the Super C motor, but they were going to put it into the Super A. So for a few months, about 4 months, I think, in early 1954, they had the Super A1 tractor, which was essentially the 100 minus the sheet metal. It had the Super A sheet metal on it, but not really, because they had a taller radiator and a bigger motor and a water pump. So what they had to do was take the Super C sheet metal, put it on the Super A, and then put the decals of the Super A on it. So denomination on it other than it says A1 on the serial number itself. I don't know that they're highly desirable, but they're relatively rare per se, and they're interesting only because it had different sheet metal, a different motor, but the same name. In mid-1954, they came out with a 100 tractor. The main reason why they did this was because they didn't have the sheet metal ready for the Super A or the 100 yet. And that was typical of International Harvester throughout its history. They weren't quite ready to release something, so they just pre-released it as it was. And later on in the 50s, that really came back and bit them in the butt. But in 1954, they came out with a Super A1, and then that became the 100 tractor until 1956, when it became the 130 tractor. In 1958, the 130 became the 140. With the release of the 140, they had the deluxe seat that had been available previously on the Cub and the 300 utility. The 1-point fast hitch was available. You could get the standard fixed drawbar, the U-shaped horseshoe drawbar, as some people call it, with the swinging drawbar. The single-point fast hitch, and I'm told, but I've never seen one, is that the 100 high crop, so it would have been like the Super AV before, and now it was the 100 AV or the high crop 140. They got rid of the AV. It just became the high crop model. High crop models had the 36-inch tires that were on the Super seat, and they had bigger like skeleton front wheels on them. So that was about the only difference as far as the high crop goes, other than it was higher. I hope that you enjoyed today's video. I appreciate all of those of you who are watching these videos. Please leave your comments down below, and if you haven't already, please take a moment and subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate your viewership. Thank you.